Hi, everyone. John Michael Coppola here, and welcome to the Chicago Theater Makers Podcast, where we chat with the actors, directors, choreographers, designers, producers, music directors, lyricists, playwrights, and all the artists who make the Chicago area theaters come alive. We're so excited to have you here with us today. But before we get started, we just want to remind you to please like, subscribe to, and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues who you think would appreciate the conversations we're having. We'd be so grateful for your support in this way so we can continue to bring these stories for years to come. Thanks again for being here, and now, curtain up on today's episode. Today's episode continues our series on National Wellness Month, where each week we're interviewing a wellness practitioner aligned with the theater-making community. And with that, today's guest came to the performing arts early and never really left. She toured nationally and internationally as a musical theater performer in such shows as 42nd Street, The Wizard of Oz, Sweeney Todd, Evita, and A Chorus Line. After years of performing, she transitioned into teaching and choreography, spending 6 years at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, developing curriculum that wove together acting, movement, voice, and dance. She also taught at the Ailey School, the 92nd Street Y, and the American Music and Dramatic Academy. Adding to her successful theatrical and teaching pursuits, she co-founded TWP Skydancer Productions in New York City, producing 3 seasons of original works by, for, and about women, served as staff choreographer at Capitol Playhouse in Olympia, Washington, where she choreographed, taught dance classes, and sold advertisements for the program, and finally worked as a house manager at Lincoln Center's Alice Tully Hall and Avery Fisher Hall, giving her a deep understanding about how theater organizations work from the inside out. What changed everything for her was finding Alexander Technique. Alexander Technique taught her to do less, work with how she's designed, and free her movement, her breath, her voice, and her joy in the work. She completed her 1,600-hour teacher training in 2006 and has been teaching ever since. And like other private practitioners in this month's series, she is offering a discount on her services. Just for listening to today's episode, you will receive a 10% discount off a 5-pack of private Alexander Technique sessions. For more information on our guest, you can visit her website, the link for which is in our show notes. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Amanda Blair MacDonald. Now let's go to the top of the show. Hi, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? It's so good to see you.
You too. We see each other quite often, but it's always nice to have friends of mine here on the podcast. So I'm really glad you could make the time. So many of our listeners are familiar with our little tradition we have here, and that is to ask our guests at the very top of the show to please tell us what your first theater experience was.
One of my earliest memories, I was probably around 5 years old, is actually one of the reasons it's memorable is that I grew up in a singing family. And so we would sing around the piano with my grandmother, and my granddaddy had 8-track tapes of classic musicals in the car, and we would all sing along. And one of them was The Music Man. So when I was about 5 years old, my parents drove us to a community theater performance in the next town of The Music Man. And of course, I knew the songs. And so I'm singing along, and my parents were like, "You're not supposed to sing. You're not up on stage," right? I'm singing along, and the colors and the dancing. It was so exciting. And I went home, and I put a sheet on the back of my swing set. And I gathered all the kids in the neighborhood, and we started putting on plays, and we would go around the neighborhood and sell tickets for a nickel and put on plays in the backyard. So clearly it had an effect on me.
So fun. Music Man is one of my favorite shows as well. I've never had an opportunity to be a part of a production. Still keeping my fingers crossed that ship has not sailed yet. But what a fun memory. And you're not the first person to say that they were putting up plays in their house or in their backyard when they were younger after being inspired by a local production. So that's a common theme for a lot of our guests. So now let's take it back to the very beginning where you grew up and your training in the theater, and then we'll get to your training in Alexander Technique, of course. But we want to hear Amanda's story up until this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up mostly in Mississippi. I was back and forth between Mississippi and North Carolina because my father was in the military. And I like I said, I grew up singing with my grandparents and singing in choirs, and I took music lessons really early, playing flute and piano, and later on guitar. And I always knew I wanted to do theater. Oh, you didn't know that about me?
No. known you for 26 years, and I never knew you played any of those instruments.
Yeah, very they started most of my opportunities were in music growing up. All
Okay.
that is to say that I always wanted to do theater, but in small town Mississippi, I did not always have a lot of opportunities to do theater.
Okay.
So I threw myself into the musical opportunities. The big thing at my high school was marching band, and twirling flag and rifle was really close to dancing. So
See, this I knew. I knew about the marching band stuff, but I guess I never knew that there were instruments around there. Anyway, I keep interrupting you. Please
yeah,
continue. Yeah.
yeah. And along the way, I was also going to a summer camp I went to every summer. It was an Episcopal summer camp in outside of Jackson, Mississippi. And I loved going to music and singing, and the music leaders always played guitar. And I started realizing about the time I was in junior high that I wanted to work at camp and I wanted to be the music person. So I asked for a guitar for my birthday and I took some guitar lessons and then sort of was self-taught the rest of it. And this is in the days before YouTube. So I was just going and finding people and asking them, just to help me with things. And my summer after my freshman year of college or sophomore year of college, somewhere in there, I worked at camp and I was the music person. So I was the song leader for the summer.
Oh, fun.
And it's one of my favorite jobs I've ever had. And then, of course, at camp, we also do lots of skits and performances. So even though I had not done any formal theater during most of those years, um, there were always things happening artistically.
Yeah.
So it came time to go to college. I knew I wanted to be a theater major, but I didn't know anything about um, what schools to go to or even how to audition.
Okay.
And I come from a very academic background. So I went to a liberal arts college and promptly became a double major in theater and music. And when I got to New York, I knew I needed some more training before I went out and tried to work professionally. And during college, I went to one of those big, huge, massive regional auditions.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a job at Cherokee, at the outdoor drama at Cherokee, North Carolina.
Okay.
The first summer, I was a stage manager. And the second summer, I was a dancer and I understudied the ingenue.
Okay.
And then I made my way to New York. And one of my friends from Cherokee had enrolled at AMDA, the American Musical and Dramatic Academy, and had told me all about it. And I thought, that's where I need to go. I'm going to study musical theater. And so I jumped into that just a few months after moving to New York City. AMDA has a program, or at least at the time had a program where you could start any quarter.
Oh.
And then you could either take the summer off like a regular college, or you could go straight through. And I thought, I've already done college. I've already had summers off. I just want to do this.
Yeah.
So I started in July and I did 4 quarters. I did summer, fall, spring, summer. I was done in 15 months. And during the last quarter, all the classes are at night and you're encouraged to start auditioning during the day.
Okay.
So I signed my first contract right before I graduated. And the day after graduation, I put all of my things in storage and I took the train to rehearsals and I started rehearsals for my first tour.
What was that?
The Wizard of Oz. It was produced by ForQuest, which was at the time running Theater by the Sea in Matunic, Rhode Island. So we rehearsed in Rhode Island and then we went out on the road for 9 months.
How great for a college kid just starting out.
Fantastic.
College kid who
Yeah.
then went on to AMDA. Yeah.
Early 20s. Yes.
Early 20s,
Mhm.
yes. Young adults.
Mhm.
Now,
Yes.
when did you start dancing? Was it not until college or at AMDA?
I had taken some classes when I was young through the Park District
Okay.
in one of the towns that I lived in. But in junior high, we moved to a new town. There were no dance classes. And
Okay.
that's when I really threw myself into all the flag and the rifle of marching band because that was the closest I could get
Yeah.
to dancing. And then when I was in college, dance was actually a PE credit. And I took so many dance classes that they wouldn't give me any credit anymore because I had more PE credits than anybody needed because I took every semester and sometimes I took 2 classes.
Yeah.
And that's really where I started to get some technique.
Okay.
And then when I was at AMDA, I looked around and I saw people who had been training since they were little bitty. And I thought, oh, I need to catch up. And so every quarter at AMDA, I found a dance class that I wasn't assigned to, but that fit my schedule. And I went to the teacher and I asked permission to audit the class. And their answer was usually yes, as long as you show up every single class and treat it like it really is your class and don't just blow it off. And I was there. So every quarter I took extra dance classes.
That's some of the benefits of going to a university or conservatory setting. It's you're paying the price for having the experience. It's kind of like an all you can eat buffet. Like take advantage of as much as you can.
And then I got back from my first tour and I went to Broadway Dance Center, and I had heard that you could work at Broadway Dance Center in exchange for classes.
Yeah.
So the year after my first tour, I worked at Broadway Dance Center and took a ton of dance classes while I auditioned for my next job. So, I really took it seriously that I had some catching up to do, and I really wanted to do musical theater. And so I just put my heart into it, and that's how I did it.
Fantastic. I wonder if Broadway Dance Center still does that. I would imagine they must, because it's such a benefit to not have to pay for classes, and they get the benefit of essentially what is free labor. Not that it's exploitive, but
right. At some point they switched it that they weren't completely free, but you got a discount in exchange for your work, which seems fair to me because the teachers who are teaching deserve to be paid.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. But man, that's hearing stories like that is such a throwback because, that was my life too when I was living there at Broadway Dance Center. I mean, I didn't go to a conservatory setting, but it's all of it. It's just like a lifetime ago. Oh man. Yeah. Now, how did you wind up making it here to Chicago?
I fell in love with a Chicago boy. I thought I was a New Yorker for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even date somebody who lived on Long Island or in New Jersey because I lived in Manhattan and I wanted to live in Manhattan. I love being able to just walk out my door and it was there, right?
Yeah.
I joined a group called the Performance Series that we would gather at a friend's house. She had a piano in a big living room, and we would practice our audition materials for each other.
Oh, neat.
And then we would have a social hour.
That's such a great idea.
Really fun. It was such a great idea. Such a great idea. And when 9/11 happened, the woman who was the musical director for that group was inspired to write an original piece. That was part of how she dealt with the trauma of 9/11. And the person running the group said, we should record this. So she got the recording studio to donate. She got the musicians to donate. And all the singers in the performance series also donated their time and their expertise. And we sang Barbara's song, and then we sang a medley of patriotic songs.
Okay.
We made CDs because that's what you did at the time.
Yeah.
And then we went around the tri-state area selling CDs and doing concerts, and all the money went to the New York Times 9/11 Fund.
How wonderful.
And this formed a real community of performers. And my now husband had just moved to the city right before 9/11. He had joined this group. Here we were all rehearsing together for the recording. We were in the recording studio together, and then we're going around the tri-state area, and we sort of formed a little small subgroup of friends who would go do all the fun things in New York that are free for actors or free in general, right?
Yeah.
So we'd go see the movies in the park, by the library. And we'd go do the dancing at Lincoln Center, and we'd dance out on the plaza where it was free. And then we'd go see the symphony in Central Park. And then we would start to go see each other's shows. And at the time, I was working as a house manager for the Directors Guild of America, and it was all private movie showings.
Okay.
And so I could bring my friends in for free. So all my friends, including my now husband, would come in and watch movies with me and then wait for me to get off work, and then we'd all go out together. So we sort of gradually became friends through these activities. And then he moved back to Chicago, and I didn't see him for a while, several years. And then I had just moved into a new apartment, and I was throwing a big housewarming party. And he happened to be in town, and a mutual friend said, hey, you should come to Amanda's party. And he shows up at the door. He doesn't realize it's me. He doesn't put together that it's me, because we all had nicknames for each other.
Okay.
I open the door. He looks at me and says, what are you doing here? I said, You don't even live in New York anymore. What are you doing here? Right? And that was it. After that, we started dating. But of course, he was in Chicago. So then we had to decide,
Yeah.
is he coming back to New York or am I going to Chicago?
Oh boy.
And the Chicago was the decision, and here I am.
So I'm curious now, how did Chicago win out?
It was very practical.
Yeah.
I was renting an apartment. He owned a condo.
Oh.
I was a contract worker who never had a guarantee. I was working at a lot of schools and I had a lot of work by then. I was teaching by then,
Yeah.
but none of them was a guarantee. And I did not have health insurance through any of those jobs.
Ah, okay.
And he had a full-time salary job with health insurance.
Okay.
So we made the practical decision, and the agreement was I would come to Chicago for 3 years. And if I hated it, he had to take me back to New York. And here I am 17
Yeah.
years later.
Oh my gosh. Well, for very purely selfish reasons, I'm so glad that you moved here and stayed here and that we've become such good friends with you. Again, me and Rachel having met you all the years when Rachel and I met as well.
I was so grateful to discover you were here too. It was a surprise to me.
I know. It's so great. This is our part of our wellness series. And so I'm having you on today to chat about Alexander technique, which was something that you introduced us to. I'm going to ask you first to explain what Alexander technique is, what it's not, what people think it is, demystify it, and also maybe some misconceptions of what Alexander technique is. So walk us through.
Well, let me tell you first that I had been hired to work at a theater out in Olympia, Washington, and I had just started doing Pilates on the machines, which is very different than Pilates on the mat.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to continue with that. So I get to my new job for the summer, and I asked the artistic director at the theater, do you have somebody who teaches Pilates on the machines? And he said, yes, we have one person. She's new to town. You should call her. Well, she's new to town. She's the only one. She's fully booked.
Mm-hmm.
So he asked me, what is it that makes you like Pilates on the machine so much? And I said, well, every time I come out of a session, I feel longer and taller.
Mm.
And he said, oh, well, then I'm going to take you to my Alexander technique teacher. I had no idea what it was, but I had a good relationship with him. I trusted him, and I thought, I'll give this a shot. So that entire summer, I took Alexander technique every week, thinking that it was for me, but it started to change the way I was teaching dance classes and the way I was teaching choreography and the way I was working with people. And so I went back to that theater on and off for 3 years. And every time I was in town, I would take lessons. And by the end of 3 years, I decided that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to learn how to teach Alexander technique. So that being said, most people think Alexander technique is about posture. And a lot of times I'll be in a social situation and somebody will introduce me and say that I'm an Alexander teacher, and people will go, oh, yeah, Alexander technique, right? And they'll like lift themselves up really high. Like I have to have good posture, right? And I try to laugh and say, I'm off duty right now, But that is one of the misunderstandings. If you do Alexander technique, yes, your posture will improve. Mm-hmm. But the goal of Alexander technique is about freedom, not about position.
As I adjust myself here in real time as
yes,
you talk
you're
to
adjusting,
me.
Right? So this is one of the things that I do at the beginning of every time I teach a group class or a master class, is I hand out all these little earplugs, all these little foam earplugs, right?
Yep.
And I have everybody hold it in their hands like this. So you could pretend if you want that you have one, or you could imagine. So this is us. And this is what we do to ourselves.
Ooh.
We press ourselves. We push ourselves. We work hard. We try hard. We squeeze hard. We repeat, we repeat, we repeat. And then we go, oh, I'm so tight. I'm so tense. I need to stretch. And then we try to stretch. And yes, some parts get stretched, but other parts don't stretch.
Yeah.
Right? So then I have everybody put their little earplug in their hand and just wait. If you stop pressing on yourself, you will come to your full expansiveness. And And that is the work of the Alexander technique.
That's a really great analogy. And even when I worked with you, I don't even think you did that little. You didn't use that visual for me. You definitely
Ah,
spoke me through it, explained what it was. But that's a really helpful visual. And for anybody who's not watching this podcast, I encourage you maybe just to hop over to YouTube or to Spotify, the two places you can watch this on video, and really see what this visual is doing to your understanding. Thanks so much for using the visual aid. Tell us what the benefits of Alexander technique are.
Alexander technique gives you a way to observe yourself, your habits and patterns, to discern whether those habits are helpful habits or not, because some habits are helpful. We work really hard to develop supportive habits, right?
Yeah.
And if you find a habit that's not helpful, that's maybe making you use yourself in a way that's not in line with how you're designed, it gives you skills for undoing the old habit and replacing it with a healthier habit. And what that does is it makes you use effort more efficiently because you're not pressing unnecessarily when you don't need to, which then frees up. It stops pulling on your vocal cords. It stops pulling on your diaphragm. You're breathing more easily. Your vocal cords are hanging more easily. Your neck and shoulders are working more easily, which gives you more range of motion in your limbs. It improves your awareness so that you start to become really present and responsive because you're not blocking your response with unnecessary, what might be called tension, right? Or pressure or stiffening. So you become more responsive and in the moment. So you become more authentic in your presence. And all of this helps reduce performance anxiety, prevent overuse issues, overuse injuries, or help solve them if you already have them. And overall, you just start to feel better. Many, many people come to me because they have a specific either pain that they're working through or an obstacle in their training that they need help getting past. And then they stay for lessons because they start seeing that it's not just going to solve that one problem, it's actually going to make everything else easier.
So I have another thought then. Would it be fair to say that once you gain this awareness of how you're moving and how to improve upon your movement or make it more efficient, that it correlates with some mental blocks or any mental struggles that one might be going through?
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I say it's not posture, because it can look like body work when you have a hands-on lesson.
Yeah.
But it really includes the mental, the emotional, everything, because all of our patterns have elements of all. Mr. Alexander did not use the words mind and body. He used the word self. Because usually there are patterns of thinking that are associated with those patterns of movement and they're intertwined.
Yeah.
So when we start undoing unnecessary patterns of movement, there are patterns of thinking and feeling that are associated that also start to unwind.
That's really helpful to put the two together. And I have to say that the few opportunities we had to work together, I still get out of bed differently than I used to because I still work on it and I still get up out of a chair differently than I used to. Because I that's the two things that I think for me cause a lot of particularly my low body pain, my back pain and my ankle pain. And, I still deal with those on occasion. I think it's more related to other things that I'm either doing or not doing, but it's certainly not those things anymore. Even sitting in my car, you helped even adjust my backrest, where my backrest was positioned in my car. And it was like that stupid little adjustment. That wasn't even like a physical thing. It was just, you took a look and you're like, oh, well, you actually gave me your backrest to try it. And I noticed that it was situated higher up on my back. And I thought, that's way higher than mine is. And once I readjusted my backrest, it just freed up my hips more for when I was sitting in longer trips in the car. And that made a huge improvement for me as well. So
yes, if you would like, I can tell the audience why.
Yes, please.
Yep. So I'm going to demonstrate visually, but I'll also talk about it with words for those of you who are listening.
Okay.
What happens is, if you think about the place where your leg becomes your pelvis, right? There's a crease.
Yep.
Where your leg meets your pelvis.
Yeah.
So your pelvis, I like to think of it like a soup bowl. and your leg comes out of your pelvis,
Yeah.
right? If you're spilling your soup bowl backwards, and this might happen if you're standing, it might happen if you're sitting, if you're rolling back onto your tailbone a little bit, not only is that flattening out your low back, which causes problems all the way up, but it also confuses all the muscles of the legs, because now the legs don't understand that the pelvis is not a leg. And all those muscles start to grip and grab and bunch, and they shorten in the front. They pull down on you so you're not breathing as much. And then they put pressure on your low back, because your low back is supposed to have a curve, and suddenly it's not curving and it starts to get achy. And then you stand up, and this shortening here continues to pull you down.
Yes.
And your back continues to ache, and then you don't know what you've done or how to get out of it.
Yes. Because that area, that front crease in the front, in the front part of my leg, where my hip meets my leg, that is the part that used to ache me the most after a long drive. I mean, and low back too, but like it felt like, for people who were familiar with the body, that psoas muscle area, that was the worst for me for a very long time.
Yes, and cars are built to hold you in a C curve for safety when there's a wreck. But if you're in your car a lot and you're sitting that way for a long time, it pushes your head forward and your head is heavy. And then you start to get heavy and pulled down. And then it's really hard to get out of that once you've been there for a while. And it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Wow. So the trick is, and you can do this in any chair or in your car, the trick is to roll up onto your sit bones, so that your soup bowl is what I call relatively level. You don't want to squeeze it and freeze it and hold it, right?
Yeah.
You want it to be relatively level, so you're not forcing anything with your muscles, and you can sort of rock back and forth and feel your sit bones. And then you can take your hands and you can just brush along your thighs and just invite your thighs not to grip so much. Invite them to release. They're releasing away from your hips towards your knees. And then you can even take one hand and put it in your low back and the other hand on the front of your pelvis, and just squeeze them towards each other a little bit and just feel a little bit of support so your low back can let go. Okay. And then you're just going to pretend like your head is a little lighter than you think it is, so it's not squishing anything down on top. So how's that for you, John?
Very different than where I was a few minutes ago. And I'm actually standing right now, but I was able to do from the waist up. But yeah.
It works standing too. Yeah. So then here's just a little bit of extra information.
Yeah.
You never ever want to sit in the middle of a chair.
Oh.
You always want to sit all the way to the front of a chair or all the way to the back of a chair.
Interesting.
Because most chairs have a dip in them, and that's going to pull you back on your tailbone.
Yeah.
And most chairs are lower in the back than they are in the front, which is also going to cause you to roll back on your tailbone. So if you're at the front of the chair and your feet are behind your knees, not kicked in front of you, behind your knees or under your knees, then it's going to be easier to keep your soup bowl level and for your upper back to be light without trying to hold yourself into a position, right?
Okay.
But we get tired. We're not meant to be like this all the time. We're actually not meant to sit as much as we do.
Yeah.
We're evolved to walk is what we're evolved to do. So we don't want to, even if you're sitting nice, light and balanced, you're not going to want to sit here for a long time. You'll get tired. So then what you do is you scoot all the way to the back of your chair. Now you'll see that I have a little wedge on my chair so that I'm a little higher in the back than I am in the front. But this chair is actually pretty level. It's from IKEA. I don't get paid by IKEA, by the way.
Nor I.
But IKEA makes a lot of chairs that are pretty level and not low in the back.
Yeah.
But here I am. I'm going to scoot to the back of the chair until my back of my pelvis is touching the back of the chair.
Yeah.
And that gives my no matter what the slant of the seat is, it supports me to stay level in my soup bowl and sit in a lighter way. And this is really important in the car, because cars are definitely lower in the back than in the front.
Right.
And most of them don't have the ability to adjust that. Some do, but some don't, right?
Yeah.
So you want to get support here. And then if you want to rest back, you're already long so that you can rest back without doing this, right? This is the C curve and this is the resting back.
Got it.
And then the low back support, what we tend to do, even if we're straight, is because we look in front, the eyes are looking forward, our head tends to drift forward. And then that puts a lot of weight on the shoulders, which makes us heavy.
Yes.
And our car tends to push us forward, so we can't put our head back. But if you put something behind your low back, I'm going to use this hand, watch my head change.
Yeah.
Because now the low back has its curve, the head has a new relationship, and it's not going to be hanging forward, and you're not going to get so tired.
Yeah.
When you're driving. So instead of being here, you're there.
Yeah. That's a helpful reminder. I'm actually dealing with some shoulder pain at the moment, and I don't believe it to be coming from my shoulder. I believe it to be coming from my neck, because I do have some cervical disc herniations in my neck. And I saw my chiropractor just yesterday, and I asked him about it. I hadn't seen him in a while. He goes, "Yeah, it's you probably." Because I was getting some gripping in my shoulder. This is TMI for our listeners, but it's my show, so who cares? And he said it's coming from my supraspinatus muscles catching, and he said I really need to think about my chest muscles and opening that up, as well as my neck and the shoulders as well. That's a good reminder for me, because again, when I'm out there at the computer or in the car, like, I'm sure that I'm hunching myself over, because it's just our natural tendency. So
that's what we tend to do.
Thank you, friend. Thank you for the reminder.
Sure.
What are some of the lessons you've learned in your career, either as an artist, as a teacher, an AT coach, anything that you sort of bring with you day to day, or that you impart to any of your students?
I will say that even when I'm not directly teaching Alexander or teaching at all, that it has changed the way I go about my life, and it supports me in everything that I do. I was very curious from the beginning about some of the scientific underpinnings of Alexander technique, and some of the relationship to the other things we're learning in science about how we work as humans. And it matched with some of the developmental education that I was getting. I studied a lot of I took some education classes, I took some dance education classes, I took some developmental classes. So one of the things that Alexander's technique does is down-regulate your nervous system. So you feel calmer when you do Alexander technique. And one of the things I learned is that when we are not regulated, and dysregulation can happen for many reasons. It can happen because you're exhausted. It can happen because you're anxious about something. It can happen because you've suffered a trauma of some type. It can happen because of an injury, right? There are lots of ways you can get dysregulated. When you're dysregulated, your nervous system is overstimulated, and you tend to get back in your ancient brain, your emotionally reactive brain. And when you're in your emotionally reactive brain, you cannot think clearly. And it doesn't work like flipping a switch. You can't just go, okay, I'm done. I'm going to think clearly now, right? You have to quiet down. I liken it to going down a path, and the path splits, and you've gone down this path, and you have to make your way back and then switch paths, right? You can't just jump over to the new path.
Yeah.
So it's like a timeout for kids, right? You take a little time out, you calm yourself down, then you're able to use your modern reasoning brain to decide what you're going to do next. When you're in your emotionally reactive brain, you're probably going to do things according to old habits and patterns, even if you think you've gotten rid of them. But if you've calmed down and switched over to your modern brain, then you can decide, do I want to do it that way, or do I want to do it this way, or do I just want to not do anything at all for a few minutes? So when I teach, that's really anything. The first thing I do is help students transition into the room with some sort of activity or just a little bit of quiet time to let them come to quiet within themselves. because you can't learn anything if you're in your emotionally reactive brain.
We've all heard about like the timeout corner or the timeout chair. And that sounds like such a negative, being put in jail type of visual. But I think if we called it like the re-regulation chair or the
Hmm.
calm space chair or something else
Hmm.
where it wasn't so stigmatized, I think that actually
Yes.
might work really well with kids for them to understand I'm not being punished.
Hmm.
I just need some time to
Hmm.
myself to regroup and get myself settled before I can get myself back into society with my classmates or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
I love that thought.
And if we could teach children that it's actually a good thing for them to say, I need a minute,
Yeah.
just think about how different their lives would be because they had it as a foundational learning when they're young.
Yes. Thanks for
Hmm.
sharing that. I had never heard it in that way, of course, because we don't speak much
Hmm.
about Alexander technique when we hang out. But it's
Yeah.
kind of nice to think of, well, maybe there's ways we can help the youth of today. I know you teach privately, of course, but where else you teach?
I teach at DePaul University.
Okay.
I teach Alexander Technique in the School of Music every quarter. I occasionally teach movement for actors classes over in the theater school. And those are mostly Laban based classes. But because I'm an Alexander teacher, every time they hire me, they say, and put as much Alexander technique as you want into there, right? They're really wonderful about that.
Yeah.
Um, I also teach at Roosevelt. I've taught some Alexander technique there in the performing arts, CCPA, the School of Performing Arts.
Yeah.
And this summer, I'm teaching in the graduate program. These are theater professionals who are getting a master's degree in directing.
At DePaul?
No, this is at Roosevelt.
Oh, Roosevelt. Gotcha.
So right now I'm in the middle of an intensive. I'm teaching, it's sort of a mashup class where I'm teaching dances for plays.
Okay.
So I'm teaching them the basics of dances that might come up in a play that you don't have to have a huge dance number like a musical, but
Yeah.
you need to know the basics so that you can create a dance without maybe having to hire a choreographer in for just this one scene.
Sure.
But for me, that's the vehicle. That's the vehicle for teaching Laban language. Laban is a way of describing movement. It's a vocabulary
Yeah.
for describing movement. And teaching Alexander cueing to help calm students who might not consider themselves a dancer, but they actually have the capability of moving their bodies and
Hmm.
learning something new if they're not scared of it. Right?
Hmm.
So the dancing is the vehicle for all these other things that I love. And then I also teach something called brain compatible pedagogy, brain compatible lesson planning. And I teach this to all kinds of people. I teach classroom teachers, I teach dance teachers, I teach Alexander teachers. It's a structure for setting up a lesson in a way that people know how to, um, in a way that the brain learns. And I learned
Hmm.
this pedagogy from a woman named Anne Green Gilbert, who teaches out in Seattle, Washington. And so that's what people get when they hire me at the university is they get all these different things that have come together to support each other. And then the third place I teach is University of Illinois Chicago in the theater department. And then I also teach for the Music Institute of Chicago for their music students.
Wow, I didn't
So
realize you were teaching at all these different places. I'm so excited for
yeah,
you.
thank you. It's like my life in New York was as a freelancer, as an
Basically.
actor, you're always looking for new jobs and finding new relationships
Yeah.
and contributing to different communities and putting it together to make a life. And that's what I do.
Oh, so great. Now, of course, we are a Theater Makers podcast. And
Yes.
I'd like to ask you to sort of circle it back to a theater related topic. Are there any Chicago theater experiences that you've seen while you're during your time here that still stay with you?
There's absolutely one. When I first moved to the city, my husband took me to the Goodman Theater and we went to see Desire Under the Elms, which is a
Mm,
Eugene O'Neill play.
yeah.
Brian Dennehy was the lead. It was stunning. It was a stunning performance.
Mm,
And one of the things that really struck me was that the set was designed so that the house was up in the air. Now the story is about a father and his sons, and the sons are fighting over who's going to inherit the house when the father dies. And so the set designer made this literal, and the house is literally hanging over them during the show.
Oh, wow.
The walls of the house, the roof of the house hanging. And I could feel it, right? This is part of the embodied nature of theater. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm seeing it, but I could feel the weight of the house over the family as they go about the show. It was brilliant. And I always strive to understand the work of everybody on the theater team and not just get lost in my performer world, and to really appreciate all the things that take to go into making a show happen.
Yeah.
But this was a really stunning and visceral experience for me of how the design can contribute to the experience of the audience.
Oh, wow. That sounds like such a cool concept. I wish I had seen that. Before I forget, where can our listeners find you online?
AmandaBlairMacDonald.com
Okay.
is my website. I'm actually about to launch my new website. It should be up in the next week or so. I'm super excited.
Excellent.
I am also on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram. My Instagram is called Balance Rebalance.
Okay.
Balance Rebalance, all smushed together, one word, because that's what I talk about in Alexander Technique. We're not posture, we're balancing, and then we're rebalancing, and then
Yes.
we're rebalancing because we have freedom to shift and change. So you can find me on Instagram at Balance Rebalance.
Great. And we'll have a link to your website, of course, in our show notes. And your Instagram handle and other social media platforms will be accessible through your website, I assume, as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
I want to say that I admire you so much. You know, I met you when we were dancers in 42nd Street years ago. And I've always been really curious and fascinated by how artists make a life for themselves, right? And so I've watched you as you proceeded through your career, and you were here, you were doing Jersey Boys, and then I watched you start to grow in all these other areas, choreography, you created your own group, now you're doing the podcast. And through it all, your love of theater shines through, and your commitment to contributing to your community shines through. And now you're making this opportunity for people to come on your podcast and share. And for me, community is really important. So the way your offerings bring community together to support each other is really beautiful. So well done. Thanks for your inspiration, and thank you for having me on. I appreciate it so much.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine. We're just so blessed to have you and your family in our lives here as at the Coppola household as well.
And you as well.
Thanks for joining us at the Chicago Theater Makers Podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. The Chicago Theater Makers Podcast is a production of Spirit Art LLC, and our podcast theme music is by Paul Langford. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the podcast, please drop us a note at our website, ChiTheaterMakersPodcast.com. That's ChiTheater, makers with an S, podcast.com. We hope you enjoyed spending time with us as much as we enjoyed spending it with you, and we'll see you on the board soon.